Hello YouTube, and in this video we're going to have a look at Robot Vacuums, one of my favorite smart tech products. So in this I've got 3 routines and 3 automation tips for you, and I hope you'll enjoy them. These are really going to help you enhance your life, your digital life, and your cleaning routine. This video is going to be split into 2 parts. The first part is going to be setting up the specific Robot Vacuum that I have, which is the Eufy Robovac 30C, link in the description, affiliate link. And the second part of the video is going to be the 3 types of automations we're going to look at. Please just comment down below with automation ideas that you might have. It could be with Robot Vacuums, it could be with anything you want me to just explore, and just subscribe to the channel so we can sort of start building that community, and we can exchange ideas on all automations. I'll be using Home Assistant specifically to get this done. I have a few other videos about other things that I've set up with Home Assistant, but I've also got a basic smart home tutorial just to get that going for everyone. I hope you will enjoy the video, and let's get into the screen recording now. So let's get stuck in. So as you can see here, we've got our blank Robovac Lovelace interface. So as usual, you can go and edit, and you can configure the UI as you can see here. So we've already got one ready called Robot Vacuum Dock, and I'll give you a bit of a tour of how this works. So by clicking this Robovac, you can see you've got some data available of sort of the last time it was triggered. So it was triggered 6 minutes ago, the current status of the Robovac, so that's docked, current battery level, and you've got various commands you can give it. So you can give it a start, a pause, a clean spot. You can sort of locate the robot if you've lost the robot. You can send it back home. You've got different fan speed options, so this is quite specific to my Eufy Robovac. So just give you an example. Don't know if you can see, the Robovac is actually just there. So if I start it off, you can see immediately it starts running, it starts cleaning. So if I pause it, so you see the status went to cleaning. So pause, this takes a little while to update the status, but it's still cleaning, but it's gone to idle. I can do a clean spot, locate, but let's return back to home. So return back to home should allow it to go, should find its way back to the actual charging base. So while that's sort of positioning itself, as you can see, the status gone to returning. So you've got various statuses of where your Robovac is at, and you can see sort of we've consumed 1% in terms of battery level. So it's pretty good. You've got a lot of control on the Robovac, even just from this dashboard here. So as you can see, from line 17 up to line 23, that's sort of the block that you need to type into your own configuration.yaml file, and that will give you all of the details you need. So let's go step by step, and we'll identify what these are. So this is specific, again, for my example, Eufy Vacuum. My Robot Vacuum has a specific IP address, which you need to go and find out in your network what IP address you have. It's better to have a static IP address rather than a dynamic one. So basically that means that you won't lose it every time you restart, or your Robovac loses connection or the lease expires. You'll need an access token and an ID, and the type, this is the specific model type. So I'll help you on this now. So really big shout out to 2 GitHub repositories. This first GitHub repository link will be in the description, from this user called Michel Arger. He's done a fantastic job, and basically he's got this Python library that you can sort of upload in your own Home Assistant, and this is again specific for the Robovac version that I'm using. And as you can see here, it's basically copy and paste from this, and you need to configure your own details. So what you really need to do is you need to download this repository. So you can do that by downloading the zip file, and that will download it onto your computer or laptop. Then you can unzip it, and then you need to do the following things. So go to your configuration part, so to your file editor, and you can browse the file system. So what you need to do is you need to create a folder, and you will create a folder called custom components. So you will go here, +, new folder, and you need to type it in exactly in this way, custom_components, plural. So within that folder, once you've created it, you will upload the specific contents of the file. Now, the folder that you need to upload is this folder, which is called the Eufy Robovac. But when you upload the folder, you'll need to upload it within Eufy_vacuum. So this is a little bit of a thing you might get it wrong. So the contents. So let me say that again. The contents of the Eufy Robovac folder need to be uploaded into a Eufy vacuum folder. So this is something I got wrong. That's why you see two of them. So again, this is really a specific line you need to be aware of. Copy the contents of the Eufy Robovac folder to custom components Eufy vacuum, right? Okay, fantastic. So once you've uploaded it, really that's it. So you've uploaded this file, and I guess you can go back to keep the link in case you want to upgrade it, but you wouldn't need to upgrade it unless you've got any specific issues with it, but I will just leave it as it is. Second part is you need to go and find out the access token and the ID. So in order to do this, you'll either need an Android mobile device, or I haven't got one, so I had to use a workaround, and this workaround consists in a simulator. Basically, you need an Android simulator. And I'm not going to go into too much detail of how this is done, because it's very specific to this specific version of the Robovac, but you can go and find out in this repo that I'm highlighting now, and I'll put the link again in the description, and that will give you the step-by-step instructions you will need to actually locate these two parameters that you need. If you need any help, just pop a question in the description. I'll help you out. So once you've found out those two IDs, so your device ID and your local key, then you're set, because then you can go back to your configuration .yaml file, you can put in your access token and your ID, and then you're sorted. And then you would restart Home Assistant, and then at that point you've got your Robot Vacuum integrated. To create this dashboard, you can just go here and configure UI and go +, and pick an entity. And what I'm going to do is just going to do something like a custom code, and I'm going to type this in now. So it's going to attribute status, entity is the vacuum.robovac, as type entity. Put a space here. Okay. Vacuum. Perfect. Vacuum to use. Save. And there you go. And now you've got your example. This is the first automation out of the three, and in this automation, we're going to be looking into creating a counter within Home Assistant, and we're going to use it to track how many times the robot has started cleaning, so how many cleaning sessions it's done, and when do we need to empty the bin. So obviously we can't get the Robot Vacuum to empty the bin itself. That would be amazing. I haven't done that yet, but at least we can figure out if we are due to create to empty it or not. So the first thing we'll need to do is we need to create a counter. So we need a variable that basically is going to keep track of how many times the robot has been has started. So in order to do that, you will need to go to your file editor. So here we are in our configuration.yaml file. As you remember from the previous part of the video, this is my specific setup for the Eufy Vacuum. Your one might be different depending on which brand and model you have. So here I've got a comment, and I'm going to start adding in information. So we're going to say create a bin counter, a vacuum bin counter, because potentially we might create a bin counter in the future. Okay, so to do this, we're gonna give it a name. So we're gonna call it vacuum bin counter. And this is quite simple. We just defined the initial count, which we're gonna put as 0, so it starts empty, and every time we trigger an action, we increase by 1. So let's save that. So now we gotta go and to our automation file, and we're gonna change that. Okay, so let's start building this automation then. So as you remember, I always like to put a comment before, so I'm gonna put Robot Vacuum Automations. Okay, so the first one I want is notify me if the robot has started cleaning, and increase the counter. Okay, so we need to give it an ID. Do you want to call it Robovac bin? You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to give it a friendly name, Robovac bin, and the trigger is going to be platform trigger. So this is going to be basically similar to the other example in my previous video. It's going to be an off and on trigger. So the entity ID is going to be again specific to your own setup. So my one's called Robovac. It's a vacuum dot Robovac. So what I'm saying is, I'm saying every time the status changes from off to on, I want to take a specific action. And the action is going to be, I'm going to call my service, my Google say, so tts.google say, and I'm going to pass it some data. First thing I'm going to pass is the entity ID of my specific media player, which is the player.kitchen speaker. And I'm going to pass a message which is Robovac has started cleaning. Okay. in the kitchen. If you have more than one, let's say. So I think this, getting an error message. Let's have a look. Bad indentation 79.9. Okay, so it took me a little bit of a while. I figured out that I was just missing the column here. So now I've got my green check again. So this is sort of you know, you need to pay attention to the syntax, but that's fine. So we've got this first part sorted. So if I reboot, reload the automations, perfect, and I'll also restart HAS because I've changed the configuration.yaml. So I'll be right back. I'm assistant. I got an error message from the notifications here, and I had a look at it, and it was missing something quite simple, but I missed it and it didn't work. So missing a counter. You need to sort of obviously define it's a counter before you give it a name. So I just went straight into giving it a name. So that's fine. It's sort of fine to figure out and to try something out, restart and see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I could have redone the video, but I think it's better to just show you that you can make mistakes and that's fine. No one's perfect. So let's carry on then with this automation. So I'm going to add a card now to expose the counter to you guys so you can see it. So I'm going to create a simple entity card, and I'm going to use this new counter called the vacuum bin counter, and it's starting from 0. Fantastic. So here we go. So we've got a vacuum bin counter 0, so assuming it's empty, probably it's not, but let's just give you an example. So the robot vacuum, at the moment it's docked, and what should happen is it actually quite is here, so it's going to make a bit of a noise. So I'm going to start it. Google should notify me, hopefully, and then the vacuum counter should go up 1. So let's give it a go. So I'm going to start. So that did work. That worked. Don't know if you caught that. It took 2, 3, 4 seconds for Google to broadcast the message, but that's fine. So Google broadcasted the message, and I stopped the robot now because it was just making too much noise. So the vacuum counter hasn't increased yet because we need to do that piece now. I actually forgot about that. So we only did a notification so far, which is fine. So now we're going to increase the counter. Next time it runs, you will see 1, 2, 3. Let's do that now then. So we're back in the automation file, and we're going to add another action. So it's another action. It's the same automation. It's just the one that notifies me if the robot has started cleaning, which we've done, and increased the counter, which we'll do now. It's sort of pretty straightforward. So adding, so this little dash sort of is the separation between the two. So as you can see, this and this. I think you can start with anything you want. I'm going to start with the entity ID. Oops, entity ID, and so that's going to be counter dot and then the name that we used. I'm trying to remember. I'll go and check. Okay, so I copied and pasted the entity ID from the configuration.yaml, saving that. So now that's so I've got the entity ID now. Now I need to call an action. So with counters, you can increase, decrease. I think you can reset, obviously, and there might be something more you can do. You can always go to the Home Assistant page to find out what you can do. We're gonna go service, and the service is called counter dot. So this is a standard service. Increment. Okay, so I'll give this a reboot. So I'm gonna reload the automation. Sorry, automation's reloaded. Okay, let's give it a go. So let's stop the robot now.
Robovac has started cleaning the kitchen.
Google went again, and the vacuum bin count has gone up to 1. So that's going to keep on happening. So I'll show you another way you can actually change the status of something. This is when you're working on an automation and you really don't want to physically trigger the robot. You can search for the entity and you can pretend you've triggered it. So you can see vacuum.robovac is off, and I can overwrite that status. I can set it to on.
Robovac has started cleaning the kitchen.
So, and you've got your counters gone up to 2, and I can go one more.
Robovac has started cleaning the kitchen.
And we're up to 3. So we'll turn it back off, and that's sort of a quite quick way to test things without actually triggering the Robovac. Okay, so let's go into automation tip number 2. So now that we're working on automation tip number 1, and in this example, what we want to be notified that the bin counter is full, right? And how you work this out? Well, you've got various options. I'm doing something very simple. Every time I start the robot vacuum, I'm assuming it's doing a full cycle. And if you know where this is going to depend on where you have the robot vacuum and how much it has to pick up. It will depend on your own situation. But you roughly would know every how many times you would need to empty it. So you set that up, whatever you think is best. I'm just going to give an example. If anything, so the 4th time the robot vacuum does a cycle, I want to hear a notification, and it'll empty it. So let's give this a go. So I'm going to add in a little bit of a comment here. And so Robovac is full notification. So ID. So we always need an ID. That's how we identify how Home Assistant deals with it in the back end. So Robovac full notification alias is full. Let's say, for example, the trigger is going to be something different. It's not a platform, it's not a state trigger. We're going to be using a numeric state. So basically it's a numeric value, and obviously we'll be looking at the counter as the sort of indicator of what is the state. So we're going to be setting it above 3 in my example. So that means that it's gonna work on the 4th time, I believe. And the entity ID, and that's going to be this guy. It's going to be the counter dot vacuum bin counter. So when the vacuum bin counter goes up to 4, then I get a notification basically telling me, oh, the robot vacuum is full. So we need an action. So we'll call that tts.google say again. You could copy paste. I'm just going to type it in quickly again. Probably going to make me do another typo, but we'll see. Guess it's good. Sometimes it's quite good practice to type out stuff when it's a new application. So you're not used to it. You get used to all these the quirks of the syntax. Is full, please empty the bin. That's the message. I think that's it. Okay, well, I'll save this and I'll reload the automation. And easily enough, we can increment it from here itself. So if I increment it,
Robovac is full, please empty the bin.
okay, so that's sorted. To reset it, you just go reset. So that will mean you need it all do it again, right? So if I increment 1, nothing, 2, it's fine, 3, nothing, and 4. So you sort of know it every time you empty the bin, you need a reset. You reset the counter, and so on and so forth. So you might automate the reset of the counter. Please put something down in the comment below if you've got any ideas of how we can automate this part, so you don't have to manually reset the counter. Perfect. Number 3, we've got the return to charging base use case. So in this example, I already typed up the code for your convenience, and I'll put some links down in the description to my blog, where you'll find all the code once I get that sorted. Robovac, go back to base when idle. So I had a look at the statuses. So whenever the robot vacuum has been stopped, but it didn't go back to the charging base, it will sit in an idle status. So every time that happens, I want this basically to trigger to basically return it back to base. Now you can potentially set a condition, a time condition. So you might say, oh, I wanted to, if it's stopped for half an hour, then I wanted to go back to charging base. So I'll show you how this works in practice. The thing to note is that the platform type is template, and the value template is sort of a function called the isState attribute. So this would be your vacuum cleaner, so this would be your entity ID. This would be your attribute that you're looking for, and this is the status. And bear in mind, this is case sensitive. You need to be spot on with the cases, with your uppercase, lowercase. If you go to the developer tools, you'll see the statuses right here in the attributes, and you're able to see all of the different types of statuses. So now it's docked. So if I start it up, and you can see docked even here. Start it, it should go and change status to cleaning. And then I'll pause it again. So it was cleaning, and then we got our bin notifications, idle. As soon as it went to idle, you hear the other beep, and then this time it's trying to return back to base. So it's quite useful for me because my robot gets stuck around and maybe my son just tapped on it and it stopped working, and now in this way it's sort of, it goes back to base, it's crawling, and it's back to base. So returning, now this would go switch to docked, I think, and then charging, because I don't think it needs to charge 96%, but it can charge. So this way you're never out of battery with your Robot Vac. So I really hope you enjoy these automation ideas. Please subscribe for future automation and coding sessions and tutorials, and also like this and just comment and just let me know if you have any ideas or other things you want to explore. Stay safe and stay tuned.